evening. Welcome to the Deep Issues Podcast, episode number 28 of the Deep Issues Podcast, to be specific. It's day 5267 in the search for Tim Shovelday. I am your host, Josh Houslander. With me, as always, Deep Issue Specialist, producer extraordinaire, heart and soul of Empire Media, Adam Hernandez. But also, we had two other people with us tonight. Different cast of characters tonight, actually. Ed Zaharsky and Kyle Puska got the night off, but we're here with Aaron Griswald and Dorf of the PoE and Majors Live fame. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
It's actually Aaron's first podcast too ever.
It is. This is Aaron Griswold's first podcast. So
yeah,
this
I've never been live.
So this is so go easy on him. It's his first time.
Yeah, it's his first podcast, and yeah, I do other stuff with the other two clowns in the room here Mondays and Tuesdays. So.
Yeah.
I'm all good. I can take it.
It's my first day. It's Homer Simpson.
But hey, we got a little bit different kind of a deep issues thing. This isn't necessarily a conspiracy. Maybe it is. But this is a little bit different than some of the stuff we've talked about in the past. Tonight we're discussing vaccinations and anti-vaxxers. This is a topic worldwide, but it's especially a topic here in the United States of America, and it was a huge topic, especially out west here in the U.S., when specific laws were passed in California and other places. But this is a major topic for debate that a lot of people, I think a good, healthy majority of people in this country are for vaccinations. But there is a group that, for several different reasons, oppose these for reasons that, by the mainstream and by, scientists and doctors and the powers that be, for the most part, are silenced, and they are considered fringe ideas, or they have been, many would say, have been proven wrong, but have they? Have they really been proven wrong? So let's kind of just get started here with the whole kind of anti-vax thing. And you guys jump in if you think that, I make a statement that you disagree with or that you think is wrong. But I think the biggest thing that you hear from the anti-vaxxers, I think if you know anything about this issue, and most people do, I think the top thing is that vaccinations can cause asthma, or
autism.
more so autism. Asthma and autism are usually the big two, though, aren't they? Especially autism, though.
Was there an asthma one? I haven't heard the asthma.
Yeah, that one's news to me too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's just. Those are the two big things that have always been on the rise.
I you know what?
That's why I said asthma first, because autism is the
I don't have
is
a
like
habit
the
of
worst.
searching this stuff out.
Is the more severe of the of those two things. But those are the two things that are on the rise that I've heard anyway have been tied the most to potential things. But yeah, autism is definitely the big guy.
It's the big one.
Yeah, is the big guy out there. This has, according to, to use climate change language, the science is settled. To some people,
Science is settled.
On
Oh,
that,
a different show?
Yeah. Thanks, Bernie Sanders.
You're welcome.
But you still hear it, though, don't you? A lot of people have come out and proven that no, there's actually no link to autism and vaccinations, to other issues in vaccinations. But Google anti-vax and autism right now, and you're going to see a whole bunch of people telling you that it's a cause, that it happens, or it's a potential cause. And even some of the one thing I feel like a lot of scientists and doctors will say that seems maybe slightly disingenuous is they'll kind of tell you, vaccinations do not cause autism. But if they do, here's why they're still a good idea. And, this is kind of a thing you hear a lot from that side. Now, does anyone here necessarily want to come out right now and say, I believe vaccinations cause autism.
No. Can I do the opposite though? On why?
You can, because I don't either. But does it, Dorf, Aaron? Do you guys want to come out and plainly say that definitely causes
nope.
it?
Well, I don't necessarily say that vaccinations cause autism, but as a 40-year-old man and growing up with the children that I have, I can honestly say that I've not witnessed or seen so many autism cases growing up as a kid.
And that is a big part of this.
Until I got to be an adult and I had my own kids. But I will also say that it could also possibly be because as I was growing up, there was no internet, so people weren't completely, totally...
Just weren't talking about it? Something you didn't talk
about?
about?
In connection with one another to where they could see so much about it. So, I mean, possibly the internet could be a good thing where it let our world know that certain things were taking place, where just because you only knew your neighbors next door versus now you know basically the whole world.
Well, to Aaron's point there, let's look at not only methods of communication but data science.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the increase in this relevance of autism is up to debate with how much is attributed to changing definition or
definitely
different methods of collection or more accurate collection method, or is there truly really more autism going on, or is the definition of what is autism been expanded as such that now if you're slightly quirky that you happen to be now fall in the spectrum?
No, and
how much of that and at the same time, if Jim Bob's third cousin has autism, if you want to know that information, you can find it because, you know, your friend Mark Zuckerberg and his book face thing. So, you know,
no,
is there more?
Yeah, no,
who knows?
Dorf, Aaron, let's definitely get to that, to the
redefinition of what autism is in a little bit. But before we do that, Adam Hernandez, vaccinations cause autism. Kill it.
The problem, though, with all of this is, you know, you've got to get back down to the root of where this all came from. Andrew Wakefield was the
Wakefield study.
Yes, was the doctor.
Is that the other guy in Wham? Oh, no, that's Andrew originally.
No, he was the brother of Tim Wakefield, pitcher for the Boston.
Oh. Is that actually true?
No, it's
not.
not.
I was going to say, like, wait a minute. I thought Andrew Wakefield was a British dude.
It is. He's a British surgeon. Well, a former British surgeon because he
lost his medical license.
Yeah, he accidentally lost his medical license because he was the one that originally developed this idea that you can get autism from vaccinations, and it was an article that was published in the Lancet, which is
British medical journal.
Yep, it's a prestigious medical journal in Great Britain. And he suggested that the measles, mumps, rubella, and MMR vaccine was increasing autism in British children. Now, the paper since then has been completely discredited.
It's been retracted, failed peer review. And it was almost retracted almost immediately.
Yeah, basically because there is tremendous procedural errors with it, undisclosed financial conflicts of
stand to gain hugely financially by the publication and wide acceptance of this paper.
Yep, and there's widespread ethical violations too. And he ended up losing his medical license because of it. And
is it true that after he lost his license to be a British surgeon, he became a British dentist?
Hey.
Dorf is British, and his teeth are immaculate. Don't.
Hey, my ancestry has been here since both sides since pre-revolution. So you shut your county mouth.
But the bottom line is though is nobody knows where autism is, what it's caused from. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no direct link though between vaccinations and.
There's not even it's not even direct. I mean, there's not even like a probable link.
No, there isn't. I mean, autism right now is still a mystery on why it happens. They can't base it on hereditary purposes because nobody can identify that is actually passed down from one parent.
Trust me, there's been a shit ton of time, effort, and money
spent
on trying to find what gene or genes
and it's just
are the trigger for autism, and you can't find it.
No,
or it hasn't been found yet. It may be there,
but I will say, regardless of where autism comes from or where it started from, if you insert any kind of chemicals into a human body that aren't naturally in there, that it could possibly cause something to happen.
You're right. There could be, you know, effects on a child that you don't want happening, but it's not going to cause autism. In some sense, it's not going to cause something that is going to be a lifelong, you know, disability.
Well, I agree with that, but it also just depends on how it affects the actual individual. Because I mean, it could cause some in some, but also not cause some in others.
Sure, but the issue has always been autism.
Well,
my child right now. We wanted to wait on the vaccinations, not because we were afraid of autism, but because my wife had a problem with vaccinations when she was a child. And to this day, she cannot get a flu shot, or else it could possibly
get the flu.
Well, it could possibly kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And we were afraid that if we did something like that to my kid, if we went on the regular schedule of vaccinations, that he would have some type of allergic reaction to it. Not autism.
Mm-hmm.
He just wouldn't respond to it the best at first, and that was by direction of our doctor too. He said, you know what, you know, based on your history, you know, maybe we should spread out these vaccinations a little bit more, not totally, you know, disregard them or not get them at all, but let's spread them out a little bit so you're not getting, you know, such large doses at one time. And it was fine.
Now, I will say I got lucky. I have 4 children, and all 4 of my children did get vaccinations, but only because of the school's mandatory that they got vaccinations, or they could no longer attend the school that they were going to. And all 4 of my kids are actually straight A students. One is a National Junior Honor Society. All 4 are in band. One plays volleyball, one plays baseball, and one plays soccer. So I can't say that they didn't achieve something from possibly getting the vaccinations, but depending on a parent's genetic DNA, other kids could possibly get a different result than what I got lucky with with my children.
Sure. I mean, there could be... Go ahead, Josh.
One of the things that that ties into this especially is that when a child has a medical issue in some way, parents will tend to immediately ask the question of what went wrong. Parents will rarely ask the question. Aaron just brought up the success his children have had as kids. Parents rarely ask what went right. You know, I agree. They rarely ask. You know,
everybody always want to look for
you
the wrong,
kind
but
of just
never
did.
the right.
You kind of just did actually make that point. Like, hey,
exactly.
what went right? But people rarely ask the question, what went right? They frequently ask the question, what went wrong?
Kyle's asked that question a lot. He's brought up that exact notion of thinking many times before. It's always, okay, what's going to go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, in some cases, what can go right?
Right.
Exactly. For instance, if
you don't explore the positive aspect.
If Aaron's kids didn't get these vaccinations, would they have been behind in school because they would have been, you know, out sick with the mumps or the measles, you know, so much. So
well, but it's also not that. But had they not gotten their vaccinations, they wouldn't have been able to go to the school that they were going to, and they would have had to go to a different school.
That's a different issue that we're going to get to about the compulsory nature of government getting involved in it, which I definitely want to have a lot to say about that.
For sure.
But now one thing that we have not discussed, and peer reviews and doctors for the most part are in agreement that vaccinations do not cause autism, but there are actually many cases out there of there is no sign of autism until the vaccination happens. This is very well documented, actually, that autism begins to occur when the vaccination is given. Now, what the doctors say, and they very well may be right, goes back to my point, or the point we're all making, that you're always asking what went wrong instead of what went right. Doctors will refer to this as explanatory attribution.
You know-
Is the term they use for
You
this.
know what,
Also
though?
a heavy dose of recency
just-
bias in that too.
No,
Yeah, well, you know
but
what?
real quick, let me finish the basic thing on explanatory attribution. You're going to agree with this. Is that autism typically begins to form around a child's first birthday when doctors and parents and relatives take note that they are not communicating or using words properly, linguistically, if you will, that they should be at their first birthday, which is right around the time you've just got your vaccinations. So doctors write this off as explanatory attribution, that you're constantly asking what went wrong, and no one's ever asking what went right. That basically,
Well, Josh, if
the
you
same time
get
that
to
you
this-
get diagnosed with autism is the same time that you get your vaccination.
Just get to the science of how that conclusion was reached by the medical professionals, scientists, and others that do this for a living.
The base.
They don't start out with a conclusion and fight their way back to find a way to make it justified. They start with, here's the result, let's figure out how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
There is no, even causal or correlative or any link like that between, vaccinations and autism. It is just an unfortunate coincidence. And that's the best answer we have now. Ultimately, welcome to science. I love people in the political sphere love to use the phrase "the science is settled," but science is never settled.
No,
it's
it's
just with the available information. This is the best answer that we have. That is what science is. The idea, it's scientific fact. No, it's the best answer we have with the information and techniques we have available to us now. Mm-hmm. That's what science is.
And that's why I never want to write this stuff off either, is because...
They could be right. It's just there is no proof for it. And unfortunately, that doesn't... We as a human species are so stuck in a binary mindset where if not one, then it must be the other.
Sure.
Well, there is a third option of, it's neither.
Yeah.
Or it's something else.
For sure.
That's a lot of it. And then you have a problem with you got 4 lay people here in a room talking about about hard medical science here.
And I wanted to say that too. Like, listen, when it comes to this, I am not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. And in fact, I'll even go further than that. Say, I'm not even especially bright about medical things.
Hey, I went to school long enough to get my doctorate. It's just I went for it.
Oh, I did too.
Me too. I was
same
almost
way.
there.
Well, this is all I have to say about it.
But it wasn't
is
this that I was studying.
No.
it is growing up as a kid, and I know as well as anyone else does that growing up as a kid, eating your meat and your vegetables like your parents ask you to is always a normal thing. But with the way that things are nowadays, with getting your vaccinations, and I grew up in the agriculture industry many, many years growing up as a child because my dad built many chicken houses for the Tyson industry and Purdue industry, as well as growing produce for our own selves and buying produce from farmers markets and seeing the different kind of gases and stuff they keep in there to keep them ripe longer than what they're actually supposed to be. So, I mean, it could be a combination from getting the vaccines plus having the hormones and the steroids that are put in the meats of cows and chickens grown nowadays.
Do you guys know how you make a hormone?
Versus
You don't
the
pay.
gases that you put in, produce that you put in nowadays could all have a chemical reaction to the kids to actually affect them that way nowadays.
And here's the biggest thing about that. It could. But have we been able to prove it?
Well,
it's been tried. You haven't been able to prove it.
I don't think we've been able to prove it, but I don't think anyone's ever tested it.
I think you'd be wrong about that.
Well,
I mean, it's possible.
One thing that is for certain is we have far more diagnosed cases of autism now than we did in the past. Now, there are several different ways you can go with this, but that's a fact that we certainly have a lot more cases of autism.
Well, I agree with
now.
that, but that's where I said where now we have the internet now versus when we were little kids growing up, where now before all you knew was your next door neighbors, to where now you know everybody in the world.
And also further than that is that you have this idea that there was a whole bunch of people in the 1800s, 1900s, up into the 1980s even, that nowadays would maybe be classified as autism.
I was going to say,
as autistic.
Autism could be very, very subtle in what it is. It could be very, very severe, and it could be very, very subtle.
Well, yeah, because back then people might have just called him slow.
Exactly.
They might have said
quirky, weird.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, he's kind of weird, but
Different,
yeah, but it's just life. People are different.
And that's why I get back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier in this. It's methods of collection, definition expansion, access to information. And if you look at all this, this idea of scientific study, scientific study is a percentage of GDP is down since, over the last 30, 40 years. However, real spending on it is up because the GDP has exploded in that same period. We're still spending more money on science every year than we ever have. So the idea that, quite honestly, there's plenty of money in, especially private studies, trying to prove that vaccines cause autism.
Mm-hmm.
There's been 12 or 13 major high-funded studies that have all come up empty.
Another thing, too...
but at the same time, that doesn't mean it's not there. They just haven't found it yet.
Sure.
But that doesn't, get back to the binary thinking. Just because one isn't true doesn't mean the other is true. So, but at the same time, I'm not going to go around and especially make social and political policy on, because one's true, that means the other has to be. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of decisions, and especially first world societies, are being made.
Well, that also depends on how someone's immune deficiency is a little higher than the others, who might protect them a little more than the others.
So that's the concept of herd immunity, but the idea that I'm talking about is the macro level and not the micro level.
But immunity has nothing to do with autism, though.
Correct. Well, the idea of what the merits of vaccination is to not only protect yourself, but the immunity of the herd. I don't know if we want to get into that. That's pretty self-explanatory, but
all that. I mean, all of that too is it's a myth, though. When you talk, who am I talking? Where was that coming from? Is that me?
I think it's you.
Me. Where the hell did that come from? Anyways,
so more or less, what y'all are saying is autism is not a genetic thing. It's more of a...
We don't know what it is. Yeah, we don't know.
Okay.
The other thing is with autism too is that when it comes to so many more people being diagnosed, and here is a mistake that they have made, is that we do now realize that they did over-diagnose it. And that's something that came into play with Asperger's, where Asperger's is now actually kind of being gotten rid of. It's being dismissed from the medical field because they've realized that pretty much any kid could be diagnosed with that. And they were over-diagnosing it so much and putting people on the spectrum that quite frankly, we talked about how, and I'm not trying to be politically incorrect here either, I'm not going out of my way to do that. But we talked about how in the past some people who now would have autism were perhaps would have been labeled as just kind of weird or kind of quirky. But some of the people who were diagnosed with Asperger's or just basic, borderline, bottom of the spectrum autism, maybe years ago wouldn't have even been thought of as that weird. Just would have been them. Just that's George. That's just how George is, That's how Susie is,
Well, I kind of agree with that because, even remembering as myself as being a kid versus the children that I have now, they are a lot different than I was when I was a kid, mostly because of all the upgrades in technology that we have now versus what they were when I was a kid. So kids are a lot now more seem to be energetic and more need things to do things with their time than what it was when I was a kid.
Kids need to be constantly entertained.
So that could be a little bit of difference as far as the technology goes. Because when I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have pagers, we didn't have anything else. If we went outside and found a stick and a piece of string, we were happy. But now, if kids don't have a phone or a tablet or anything else, then they're sad and bored and don't know what to do with themselves.
Well, I'm going to speak out of a position of ignorance as the only person in this room who doesn't have a kid. But I don't think there's any change in activity or interest levels of youth. It's just the different outlets to express them.
Sure.
Now, like you were saying, Aaron, back in the day, let's call it, when you were bored, you went and grabbed a stick, and all of a sudden it was a sword or a gun, and you played with your brother, and that's how you kept yourself entertained. Now there's easier, less effort, less need to be creative solutions that are more highly stimulating, which does cause chemical addiction in your brain.
It does, and it also can lead to things that will cause
develop personality disorders.
Yeah, just antisocial behavior.
Well, true. Exactly.
So a lot of times I think a lot of these kids, they say that, oh, this kid is really antisocial. I wonder where he's at on the autism spectrum, when really it's like maybe they're antisocial because his parents shoved a tablet in his face.
Exactly.
When he was 2 years old.
Instead of putting him out in the yard with a couple of the kids.
I cannot and will not rule that out. And again, I'm no doctor, but I won't do that.
But you play one sometimes on podcasts, though.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Well, don't get me,
I'm a lousy
wrong.
doctor, but I'm an awesome podcaster.
Oh, yeah.
And
toot your own horn much.
Yeah, and so, I am willing to just play the part of any major professional right here on the Empire Media Podcast.
Well, hey, don't get me wrong. My kids love their tablets, and they love their Xboxes, and they love their PlayStation 4s and all that other good stuff. But when I have them on my weekends, I'll take them outside. I'll take my kids to the ballpark, and we'll play baseball. We'll play volleyball and stuff like that. And they seem just as happy doing that as they do as if they're sitting there looking at a screen. But at the end of the day, I feel like that they learned a lot more by doing what I did old school style than just sitting there being bored by themselves instead of playing with each other than just being there by themselves.
Good point. Something I want to ask you guys, and we don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but it's I somewhat recently read an article, and it wasn't a brand new article, but it was actually written by an autistic woman.
Oh.
No, it was actually written by an autistic woman. Well, obviously a high-functioning autistic woman. And her idea was not that vaccines don't cause autism, but her idea was that maybe vaccines cause autism. But is autism really worse than measles and mumps and rubella or polio? And her point was basically just asking, like, what if it does cause autism? Isn't it still better? And how do you guys feel about that? Like, I thought it was kind of a weird thing. And it was a strange article because it was well written, but at the same time it was kind of, and maybe I'm old school with this, but it was hard to take seriously because it was riddled with cuss words throughout the article. You know what I mean? But it was still well written. But that doesn't really play in here nor there. But how do you guys feel about this idea that, like, so what if it causes autism? Isn't it better to not have measles, mumps, rubella, and polio?
Maybe in some sense, just because we're distinguishing between high functioning autisms or people with autism and low functioning. So yeah, maybe in some sense it could be. I mean, because we know if you don't get the polio vaccine and you end up getting polio, then you could be,
your legs don't work anymore.
You could never, be able to use your legs ever again. Who knows if you have some type of, serious case of mumps or the measles, what can happen, with that? You could die, which having autism is certainly better than,
dead,
dying from an extreme serious
the greatest throwaway bumper sticker slogan to the vaccine don't cause autism, they cause adults. Vaccines cause adults. It's you're welcome to bumper sticker theater here, but to your point though, Adam,
I'm pretty sure adults existed before vaccines, though.
Well, it really
more of them.
Well, it really all depends on how you think about the situation.
I mean, that in hundreds, dozens to hundreds to thousands
hold on,
of other
hold on.
medical
Dorf was
advances.
getting ready to comment on my point. So go ahead, Dorf.
To kind of your point, I mean, you have a live test lab of this exactly now. As you look at life expectancy rates and child mortality rates in the developing parts of Africa, and how steeply the average life expectancy is growing with the increase of the population that's being vaccinated for pretty basic shit, and and also in tandem with malaria prevention.
Sure.
And just, yeah, there's still the number one killer, of people in Africa is still the, HIV/AIDS. But still, as you vaccinate them for the other bullshit, whether it's the flu or measles, mumps, polio, rubella, you name it, the life expectancy throughout that country has jumped decades in just decades. Mm-hmm. People aren't dying as children as often anymore from preventable diseases. Now, there's still people dying from lack of clean water, war, anything, other environmental factors linked to poverty and pollution and other stuff like that. But the deaths attributable to preventable diseases are pretty much going away, are rapidly decreasing. They're not going away yet.
I agree with that.
You still have a problem with medical infrastructure and getting the rural population who are usually more tribal and folksy to accept, a vaccination isn't, a slight against God or something like that. You still have that problem. But at the same time, those who are getting vaccinated as children are growing up healthier because they're not spending as much of their time as children sick.
Yeah, but there's so many. I'm not.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not,
there's
I'm not being anti-vaccine.
There's
here,
umpteen
but...
factors that go into if you want to call it the African health problem.
Okay.
However, there's a pretty damn good test case that you can watch live for why vaccines are a good idea.
No, I mean, and vaccines have been proven to be a good idea in a lot of ways. Polio being the main
for
one.
those who are skeptical, you can see the results in the data with your own eyeballs happening now.
Yes, you can. And listen, polio is the ultimate, the ultimate example.
If it doesn't kill you, it maims you.
Right. I mean, polio is nasty, and we have basically gotten rid of polio. Polio pretty much does not exist. Dorf, one issue I have, I don't think anything you said was incorrect. It definitely wasn't incorrect. But I do have an issue when discussing medical issues and medical problems when people will jump back and forth from the developed world to Africa and back and forth, because they're very different animals from
absolutely.
one another. They're very different. So to say, there's a whole bunch of different stances to be had in between. Vaccinations are always 100% good and should be compulsory, to look how many fewer people are dying in Africa. I mean, Africa does not have the basic medical care that the developed world has. So polio, again, great example of why vaccines are awesome. That's your example of why vaccines are awesome, is polio right there. But if we didn't have a vaccine, the MMR vaccine, which is one of the big ones that's being labeled for
autism,
potential autism creation. And for the most part, we've proven that nobody in this room believes in that necessarily. But the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella. Now, if we weren't getting those vaccinations here in the good old US of A, would a ton of people be dying from measles, mumps, and rubella? No, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't necessarily be dying. However, would they be spending significant chunks of their life, especially if they're from a urban area, in a hospital sick with the damn shit? Absolutely.
Maybe. My mom had
all that stuff is spread by proximity.
But my mom had all three of those back in the 60s.
Sure.
My mom was one of 9 kids. Her and every one of her siblings had measles, mumps, and rubella growing up, and none of them died. None of them are any worse for the wear. They got, it's just like the chicken pox.
Well, that's where you have to look
that's
at
all
it
it is.
through
And
the eyes of society versus the eyes of a parent.
Right, but the thing is,
however, that stuff can kill you just because it did.
It can. Chickenpox can kill you too. The flu can kill you. I mean,
flu still kills more than pretty much any disease.
Yeah, I don't get flu shots. I think they're a bad idea. That's just totally personal. That's just totally personal on my part.
I'm not going to get flu if I ain't got the flu.
Yeah, I don't get flu shots. That's just me. That's just a choice that I make for myself. My kids have gotten them in the past. They don't always. I make that judgment call year to year. I don't personally like to get them. I am against it only on a personal basis. only on a personal basis. This isn't me. Josh just said ban flu shots. No, he did not. That's just, I don't get them. And I know people die from the flu.
So you love the flu.
I have gotten the flu. I haven't died from it yet.
And you wish the flu upon everybody else.
But the thing is, I have had the chicken pox, and I spent a...
You've never had the chicken pox?
No, I have had it.
Okay.
I have had the chicken pox. I spent a week itching myself, and then I got over it. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. And the thing is, when we're looking at people who had measles, mumps, and rubella, that was like 50 years ago. And
I think it's even happens now, but I think it was more recent than that.
Yeah, and that's... I mean, I got that one when I was a kid, the measles, mumps, rubella.
Realistically, if you're a kid now or a young adult, your grandparents had it.
Yeah,
some of your parents probably did too.
I mean, I'm getting old, and my mom had it. My parents had it.
Well, I had chicken pox twice growing up, and I had the measles, and I've had the flu probably 3 times in my life, and I didn't die from it. And I can honestly say I've never gotten a flu shot because I've heard that the flu shot actually makes you feel like you have the flu.
Well, they inject you with the flu.
And I've also
it's an
heard
incapacitated
that once
version
you
of
have the
virus.
flu,
Welcome
you're
to
not going to have it
that's
again.
what every-
Welcome to
Years.
immunology, yeah.
That's
immunology 101.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with Dorf on this one. I don't think, just because somebody has had it before and they survived it doesn't mean it's not a good idea to have a vaccination for it now.
I didn't say it was a bad idea to have one. But
just look at the actuarial tables of people vaccinated versus not. I mean, just life expectancy, insurance risk.
Don't talk insurance risk. That's a terrible.
Well, like I said.
Well, there's a reason. There's a lot of the stuff especially when
I
you're applying
know,
for insurance, they can't ask you because then no one would be insured.
Well, I'm from the South, and a lot of this stuff I've heard that if you have it once, then you don't have to really worry much about
that's
having
most
it once
viral
again.
diseases. Yeah, most viral diseases.
And so
like
as
that.
far as like the flu goes and the measles and the mumps and vaccinations and stuff like that, I believe that they actually try to give them to you at least once, so it's very possible that you won't catch them again. And I can understand that, but if you don't ever have to go through it, then why take the chance of actually having to go through it forcefully?
How much, Aaron? How much do you understand about how your immune system works?
I know as far as I eat good and I eat healthy, then I shouldn't have to worry much about anything.
That's all fine and dandy, but that's not your immune system. So it helps support your immune system. However, your immune system works, and how vaccines work, they put in a depleted and weakened stage of the virus. So your body will build up a catalog of antibodies, so when they discover it, they don't have to sit there and figure out how to kill it.
Okay,
it's a foreign body. So that's how vaccines work. They give them the playbook on how to beat the shit before it shows up. Now, a lot of the reason people will give intentionally expose their children to chicken pox is it gets it over and done with and gets them that that when at a time it's convenient, so they never have to have it again. Okay. My best friend's father did not get the chicken pox as a child, and he had it as an adult, and he was hospitalized for it.
Yeah, it can be nasty.
Okay, well, I understand that.
It also turn into shingles, which is a really nasty thing to go through.
Well, the only question I have to ask then is once you get your vaccination and once you're all over and through with everything, why is it persistent that you have to get it year after year?
So you're specifically, I'm sure, talking about flu. There is no such thing as the flu. The flu is a just common vernacular term for a virus that all the symptoms manifest themselves very similarly. The reason flu shots are not 100% effective is there's countless strains of the virus which constantly mutate depending on environmental factors or people not finishing their antibiotics, where the flu is not the same thing between me and you and year to year. So most flu vaccines, if they're lucky, only will cover 20% of the likely strains that year. Scientists just pick the ones that they think are going to be the most prevalent, take a shot in the dark, and that's what they make the vaccine.
Every year, the flu shot that comes out is
different than the last.
It's just, but in essence, is just an educated guess as to which flu strains are going to be big that year.
And so
the doctors get together and say, "Hey, which flu strains do we think are going to be big?" and they give it out. So that's when people get a flu shot and they say, I got the flu shot and I still got the flu. Well, you
got a different one.
Yeah, you got one of the ones you didn't get
here's
immunized.
the reason that you can
and
have...
so more or less they changed because we as humans thought that we were better than what the flu
No,
shot
this
actually
is
gave
just the
us,
virus.
so
This is
that's
just
what helped
viruses
make it
being
mutate.
viruses. Viruses being viruses, they adapt to in order to survive, just like, and they're able to do that so much faster than, other organisms just by the nature of the game. The reason that you have like polio and all those other things and why you only have to get vaccinated for like a strain is because it's gone. Pretty much. And they know if those viruses are still out there in the wild, they know exactly which one it is. And that's the one they vaccinate you for.
Big question.
That's why those are so... And that gets back to the concept of herd immunity. If you pretty much make the herd incapable of contracting it, those who have the autoimmune reasons that they can't get it won't be exposed to it because, you know what, they're not traipsing around in, I hate to say it, but the African bush, where you may be able to find that out in the wild or in the water or in the air, where, if you're immune compromised, you just don't do that, and then you're good.
Okay, we will definitely get back to the herd concept, but one question I want to raise to you guys is the political, governmental end of it.
Good, I was hoping you'd get to this.
Okay, vaccines are good. We, for the most part here, agree that vaccines are good. Should they be compulsory? Should parents be forced to give their kids vaccines?
I don't think any parent should be forced to give their kids a vaccine because I personally think that takes away their personal given rights to do it. But if they decide to do it, then that's up to them. If they decide not to, then that's up to them as well. But I will agree that if they decide to do it to their children, it probably could be better for the society so that other children doesn't get it. And it only takes away a person's ability of choice, whether they want to or not, whether they give their children the vaccination or not. And that is our actual right here in the United States is choice.
My parents vaccinated me and my sister when we were kids. I'm glad they did. I'm a father of 4. All 4 of my kids were vaccinated for everything you're supposed to vaccinate them for. I very much oppose any sort of compulsory vaccination. I think it's wrong, and quite honestly, I will go as far to say, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I want to get to other views on this as well, but quite honestly, I don't care if the mother or father of the kid says, I think vaccinations cause AIDS. Not I think they cause autism, not I think they cause asthma, not I think they could
cause you to believe in the flat Earth.
Right. Yeah. I think vaccinations can cause super triple satanic space AIDS.
God, it's harsh.
And
that's
and other
extreme.
people have the right to say, well, I think
Space
you're stupid,
AIDS.
but I think I do believe in rights to this from the onset. So. What say you?
And Josh, I kind of have a counter to that. It's very philosophically sound to say, you can't, that's a government overreach. I'm not hurting anybody by my decision. It's my right to raise my kids the way I want. However, if you want to get deeper into like libertarian philosophy, it's all built on the non-aggression principle that I'm not doing nothing to you, so you can fuck off. To simplify, and I know we could talk the nuances of that to death, and we have on a different show here, but the whole idea that, especially when you visit the concept of like herd immunity, is you aren't not harming me by choosing not to do that. You're reducing the risk of you're reducing the effectiveness of the herd immunity, and you could be fucking me.
Okay, well,
by that, but so it's not a guilt-free or consequenceless act. There are consequences for other people, and then you get into the discussion of rights trumping rights. So is it?
Okay.
Are you fucking me?
I have 3
and
points.
that's okay because it's
I
freedom,
have 3
or is
points
that
that
a Trump? Sure.
3 points that I'm going to throw back to you. Okay.
I'm conflicted. I don't know how. I've always had conflict about this kind of train of thought, and I see both sides. I don't have my mind made up on this, so please change my mind.
Where's your coffee cup?
Okay, three things.
I am not a member of Stephen Crowder's Mug Club.
3 things based on this. Okay. First one being, I am a believer in the non-aggression principle, the NAP. Huge believer of it. Only
Big fan.
Yes. Only someone who does not subscribe to the NAP through other means in their life is going to try to say that the NAP can be used in that way. I can't imagine a libertarian who actually does go out of their way to try to live their life by the non-aggression principle would ever try to explain away you must get vaccines because of the non-aggression principle. I really don't see that happening.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying that's a libertarian argument. That I'm saying that's a counter to the libertarian argument.
I feel like that's somebody trying to misappropriate another person's ideology, which I don't agree with. Crap, did I just forget one of my 3? I think I might have. Maybe I'll get back to it. The other one, and I'll just throw it back to you after this, and if I think of my other thing, well, maybe I will or will not come back to it, I don't know. But my other thing is, explain to me, and if you can't, that's okay too. Explain to me, without using the excuse, because babies. Because that's the excuse, because babies. Explain to me.
Can you say
why...
because infants?
No, you can't say because infants. Or
toddlers?
No synonyms.
Offspring.
Yes, you can say toddlers. You can say toddlers. Because it won't work. But explain to me why it matters to your kid if my kid's not vaccinated when your kid is vaccinated. I'm going to school. I'm sending my kid to school. They're 5 now. They're 5 years old.
Sure.
They're going to school. So, can't use because babies. My kid is going to school at age 5. They are not vaccinated.
Okay.
They might be walking in the door that day. I got 3 kids. I have triplets. One has measles, one has mumps, one has rubella. I just sent them to the first day of kindergarten. Your kid's exposed. But your kid's vaccinated.
So they shouldn't have
Why does it
nothing to worry
matter?
about.
Well, Josh,
why does it matter?
Josh, it comes back to very salient point. I hate to but my herd immunity herd immunization, whatever. There are plenty. I don't know the prevalence. I'm not up on the stats on this. I'm not sure about the prevalence of the amount of people who have the autoimmune conditions where they can't be vaccinated. But they still need to be able to go to school.
But when
are you
say,
fucking them?
Oh, that's.
But when you say
that's a topic for a different.
Now,
hold on, you guys. Let Dorf finish. His point.
Go ahead, Dorf.
So, it's not necessarily that in this scenario that you've laid out that you're screwing my children, the ones that have been vaccinated here. You're then violating the rights of those who potentially violating the rights of those who can't because the vaccine will like your wife, Adam, who being vaccinated would directly and cause harm to them, and they know that, so they can't get it. So is that a?
They still have it by age 5, though.
No, like there are some people who are immune compromised who can never be vaccinated because they will get whatever they get because their immune system is genetically fucked. Like those people do exist, and I don't know how prevalent they are. I don't know how if it's a small enough group of the population, you don't make social policy to cater to outliers who are potentially that small. I don't know, but you are potentially committing aggression of disease. Now it's not throwing a punch or stealing somebody's shit, but you could argue is it genetic or immune warfare?
Is there any data out there to show that people whose parents are pro-vaccine have gotten these diseases? Because I know of no data that shows that that the people that got these diseases, the few people out there who still get measles, mumps, and rubella. I'm going to keep going back to those 3. I know there's other ones out there.
It's the easiest one to talk about.
Right. But, just for the sake of time for the show, I'm just going to keep going back to those. Is there any data that the people that got these were people who were pro-vaccine? Because to me, any date I've heard of a kid who had measles, well, his parents didn't get him vaccinated. You know, I mean, so he got the measles. It's going to happen.
Now, if you're talking large data sets, no, but you can run into, anecdotal stories that my kid can't have them and he got mumps because you're an asshole. That those stories are out there. They do exist. Now, how does that feed into broad data sets? I don't know. It's individual anecdotes. I haven't seen the data. It might be there. It might not. I don't know.
Well,
however, there are individual stories of that exact scenario that you've described happening. But is it a nationwide or worldwide trend? I couldn't tell you.
Aaron, go ahead.
Well, as us being individuals and thinking of ourselves as individualists and one individual human versus another, and then also talking in your herd sense of thinking, then that would just consider us just as like a pasture full of cattle as much as a cattle full of cows, regardless if one got vaccinated or one got of the other, when all of us are actually different than each other, even though it's not quite the same as us being a herd as a herd of cattle versus a herd of humans. And if we are a herd of humans, then that means that we're no different than they are.
On a individual philosophic level, Aaron, I don't disagree with you. I do very much subscribe to the individual. The theory of the smallest minority is the individual, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, look at our back catalog on Politics of the Empire. We talk that to death. Mm-hmm. However, you do live in a society of individuals, where if you want to subscribe to the non-aggression principle, which, Josh, on paper, I still think is the most pure thing you can follow. However, when it meets, rubber meets the road, it's practically impossible to run a functioning society of any sort by pure, strict adherence to that ideology. And I think we've talked that to do. But at the same time, in the modern society that we specifically live here in the United States, it's the balancing of rights. You look at for example, like all these great, Supreme Court cases that you hear about, like the bake the cake, for example. Does a person's right to not be discriminated against be trumped by religious freedom? Which one is more prevalent? They're both rights.
No, they're
How
not.
do you solve this?
They're actually not rights.
I think.
They're not. Though.
I think
However, that's how things have been interpreted by the courts in the society that you are a member of. So, whether or not we agree with that philosophically, they are practically the rules of the game.
I'm only a member of a society because I was born into it and forced into it.
Well,
I believe in herd.
True.
I believe in herd mentality. And Adam, I know you want to get in on this, but I only believe
human beings are pack animals.
No, they're not.
Yes,
no,
they are.
They were. They're not. They're not now.
Well,
you can't honestly believe that we've shed the entirety of the pack mentality in what's evolutionarily an extremely short period of time.
I can believe it, and I can double down on it by saying that we are against it because we say we are against it.
Okay.
And that is enough. Let me get this one point in
that
I've been trying to say. Okay. Listen, I believe in herd mentality when dealing with herds. I'm not part of a herd. Okay, I'm not part of a herd.
Nor am I.
No matter who wants me to be part of one.
Okay, I'm gonna go off and say this. I think we got to backtrack a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Josh Dorf. I think you're both right in a sense. I think when we bring it back to the thought of immunizations being compulsory, I think that's a bad idea. I hate using the cliche slippery slope, but it is a slippery slope. If the government forces you to get one medical procedure done, then what else is that going to open the door for?
Does that set the legal precedent for mandatory circumcision?
Exactly. But
you're right.
But in the same sense, yes, if you don't want to get your kid vaccinated, that's fine. However, if you don't get your kid vaccinated, like in your sense, Aaron, your kids had to get vaccinated to go to public school, correct?
Exactly.
If they don't get vaccinated, then I'm sorry.
You don't get to play.
You don't get to go to public school. Hold on, because exactly what you said, Dorf. Josh asked you, okay, well, if you're not vaccinated, or if you are vaccinated, what do you have to worry about? Well, there's a multitude of different reasons why people need to worry about people who are not vaccinated. Because, yes, there are people out there with depleted immune systems, people who cannot get certain vaccinations and who are then exposed to this if these kids end up going to these schools,
or even adults in your workplace.
Exactly, who are not vaccinated. So,
Well,
in that sense, I think you guys are both right. You're both right for different scenarios here.
Can I throw in
well,
why?
that just
why
leaves
I
a question as to why, if certain children can't get certain vaccinations and they're still allowed to go to the school, then why are they any different than any of the other kids? That
Because
actually
schooling has
can
been
get the
determined as a
vaccinations?
fundamental right in the United
Because
States.
what if those kids that can't get the vaccinations for whatever purposes get sick, and then they cause the other children to get sick that did get vaccinations but got letters sent home that said if they don't get the vaccinations they can't go to the school, then how is that right for those kids versus the ones who aren't actually able to get the vaccinations because of whatever probabilities that they have in their own personal life, but that has nothing to do with my child's life or someone else's child's life?
Okay, you guys all just made some excellent points. Adam, you nailed it. But except for one major thing.
No, there's no buts.
No, there's a huge but. There's actually a huge but to this.
Quit talking about my ass like that.
And Dorf, you said that schooling is a fundamental right.
Has been. I
No,
don't
no.
agree with it, but
No.
it has been determined.
No, it's not though. It's not though.
I agree with you, Josh.
It's
been determined as
hang on,
such.
I need to finish this point. This is an important point.
Okay, let's not
No, I'm trying
scream.
to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm saying
No,
let's not scream into the mics though.
Okay, all right. This is a very important point. You don't get your vaccinations, you don't get to go to school. Right? That's what Adam said? Great point.
That's not what I said, but go ahead.
No, I mean, isn't that what you're saying?
I
That's-
said you can't go to.
that's in
I said
many
you can't go
places
to
that
public
is, no.
school.
Okay, that's not what I just said?
No, you said not go to school. I'm not saying
Okay.
you can't get an education. I'm saying you can't go to public school.
Okay. So, the vaccinations aren't compulsory, right? Because all they're saying is, if you don't get your vaccinations, you can't go to public school. But we all forget, school is compulsory. You have to go to school.
Public
you
school.
Don't have a
Public
choice.
school is not compulsory.
Yes.
Some sort of school is compulsory.
School is compulsory. You have the option of going through a sanctioned private school.
Private school,
which is still,
Charter schools. Yeah, sure. There are mandatory.
they're all the same
there are
thing. So-
standards.
Well, getting
Homeschools. Yes.
school is compulsory
but
because no matter
so
what, you
a
guys still have to have schooling.
So are you going to
Homeschool.
Are you going to automatically provide a private / charter school? Charter schools are private, so I don't like it when people say differentiate. But I guess there
It's
is a
funding
difference.
sources and
Sure,
whatever.
sure.
Yeah.
So are you going to always make sure that a local private school that does not require vaccinations is right there? Because you're not. That's not.
It's
a thing.
I mean, it's entirely impractical, especially in the rural areas.
Well, the government,
Exactly. So my
the
point
government's
is that
not going to provide that.
the vaccinations are compulsory because the school is compulsory.
You can't.
So you are being forced to do it no matter what. And yes, you are being forced by threat of violence by the government
threat of
to vaccinate
revocation of rights.
to violence.
Yeah.
If you do not
By
send
force
your
of
child
violence, yes.
to school.
Yeah, because if you don't
If
send
you
your
do
child
not-
to school, then you go to jail.
Yeah, if you do not send your child to school because you didn't vaccinate them, then the government will come to your house, arrest you, vaccinate your kid, and send them to school.
So it
is compulsory.
So what's
this
the
idea
solution?
that
What's the solution then?
I'm just trying to get rid of this idea that you're hiding that so many people like the state of California hid behind by saying vaccinations aren't compulsory.
Well, there is
you
no
just have to go to
solution.
school.
You're only forced
No, so
to
the
do what they
vaccinations
tell
are
you to do.
compulsory. So I'm just saying people can't take the stance that I'm not saying they're compulsory. I'm just saying you can't go to school if they're not compulsory. No, if you're saying you can't go to school, then you are saying they are compulsory. Unless you are agreeing with Crazy Fringe Josh and you think that you shouldn't have to send your kids to school, which I don't. I can't stand compulsory education. I actually think it's a far worse evil in this country than I do forcing kids to have vaccines, because I actually like vaccines. I don't think vaccines should be compulsory because I oppose things being compulsory by the government. But as I have attested to and as I've proven with my 4 children, I actually support vaccines.
Okay.
But I don't support school, but I don't have a choice.
Okay, Josh, one thing.
Yes.
You do support an education in some form.
If it's compulsory in any way, no. I support people becoming smarter, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I support...
call it what you will.
Yeah, I mean...
But you would support you making your
being allowed to never send your kids to school.
Making your kids smarter.
Yes, but
Okay.
I actually think they would be better off not going to school than going to school.
Okay, so
For
that's
purposes.
so that's a solution. So that's a solution then.
Yeah, make education not compulsory. Is a solution. To say, if you choose to go to...
Yeah, that would be more of a political third rail than Social Security. Jeez.
Well, it would be. It would be. I mean, but it's a huge issue for me personally, and I know it's a losing proposition, but it doesn't mean it's not important to me or that I don't support it. But listen, if most people agree with Adam over me, and I think they probably do.
Look, I'm looking at it from a standpoint that I have a direct relationship with. My wife can't get the flu shot because if she does, and it's not something that's incredibly serious. Look, nowadays, if you live in a first world country and you get the flu, you're probably not going to die from it. Especially,
Of course, you're very old or very young.
Exactly.
Right.
So what's the solution in that sense? Are you going to go ahead and punish kids with weakened immune systems?
Well, I mean, your flu shot example is strange because that one is
it's
totally not.
Okay, well, you don't. I even said that the flu shot example may not have been the best one.
I mean, because I
Okay,
your
don't
wife,
even
but
use
your
don't
wife can't get the flu shot. I choose not to get it.
don't even mention the flu shot thing. That may have been a bad example, but I'm talking about other diseases out there that people can get because of somebody else that wasn't vaccinated going to a public school. What about those people?
Well, I mean, I forgive my ignorance because I mean, are there? I'm not saying that there's nobody out there, but are there a bunch of people that can't get the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Are there people out there with weakened immune systems? Yes.
okay.
They go to school? Yes.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. Maybe those people shouldn't go to school.
Well, then that's where we need to study.
You know,
as
I
to
mean,
why people
that's
are being born with
if
such
school
weakened
wasn't
immune
compulsory,
systems.
then parents
Welcome
would
to
have,
genetics, man, Aaron.
I mean,
That's
if school wasn't compulsory, then parents would have the ability to say, my child is legitimately too sick to go to school because of what could happen. Because if
and
your
those
child,
people do exist.
I know they do. I know they do. They
I hate to
homeschool.
call them bubble kids, but
No, and
they're
that's what I
out
mean.
there.
That's what I mean. So if that were to happen, I mean, I would think that.
There's people that are genetically allergic to the sun.
I mean, if I had a kid that had an immune system that was that bad that they could never be around somebody that.
Well, it's not so much
didn't
that.
have
It's not so much. It's that
Well,
bad.
in that case, what if one doctor screwed up one shot and they don't know it?
Okay, you're.
No, I mean people.
Now you're-
Well, Adam, when you're talking about
You're getting
no,
down
no.
to the micro level minutia here.
Yeah.
No, but
we're
I
trying
think
to talk
we're
macro
already
here.
at the micro level minutia. We're talking about people that
No,
can't
people-
get the
people-
measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. I promise you, there's just as many people out there
No, there
who have
isn't.
gotten that vaccine and still gotten measles, mumps, or rubella because something
I
wrong
would-
happened.
I doubt that. I would love to see data. Proving
Okay,
your point.
well, neither one
I
of us
would
have the
totally
data in
accept
front
your
of us.
data if
I'd
you
accept
can provide
yours,
it,
but you're not providing me with any either.
well, I don't have. Yeah,
Okay,
you're right.
well, this is dumb then. So
We're
let's
at-
move
we're
on.
at an
Why is it
impasse.
dumb? Why is it dumb?
We're at an
Because-
impasse then.
Yeah, we're at an impasse. Exactly.
I don't know. I don't know anybody who hasn't been able to get the measles, mumps, rubella
Okay,
vaccine.
that's
I
fine.
do.
Okay. I know, but I do know people that have gotten measles, mumps, and rubella after getting the vaccine.
I know about. Let's see, 2, 3, 7.
Okay, cool. That's great. I mean, I know people that have gotten measles after getting the vaccine through freak occurrences. Same with the chickenpox. Don't know anybody that's had polio.
I had chickenpox twice, and you ain't supposed to have those twice.
Well, I mean, chances are with yours, you probably had Fifth's disease.
Possibly.
One of the time.
Possibly.
Yeah, and one of the times you probably had fifth disease, which is something my kids had at one point, which is very similar to chickenpox.
Manifests similar to chickenpox, but
Yeah.
isn't actually chickenpox.
But as a kid back in the 80s, if you had that twice, one of them probably wasn't chickenpox.
I gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? Could have been. You know, hey,
Why not?
crazy stuff happens.
I know I had the chickenpox twice and had the measles once, so
Yeah.
I had the chickenpox once.
What's
chickenpox sucked
Yeah, it did.
both times.
Do they still? Oh wait, are there still chickenpox parties out there?
that's how I got
I
it.
got,
Nah,
my mother
I
intentionally
haven't heard that in a
exposed
while.
me to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my friends growing up
I
had
don't
got
think
it.
people do that anymore.
No.
But that was totally a thing.
Did you ever
when
see
we were
the-
kids.
You ever see the South-
I've heard of it, but I've never.
You ever
been
see the
to one.
South Park episode where they do the chickenpox thing, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
and then it pisses all the kids off, so they intentionally expose their parents to herpes.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
No, I haven't seen
Hi,
that.
They have
Here's a virus that goes away after about a week. Here, we're going to give you something that will never go
yeah,
away.
so they have a hooker like sitting there like using their parents' toothbrush and everything.
Gross. Gross.
I don't remember that episode.
You know,
No. Sounds like something they
You're
do.
kind of a South Park savant.
I have not watched any of like the last 4 seasons.
Well,
so.
it didn't happen in the last 4 seasons.
Oh, I know. I haven't watched any of it in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Where are
Okay.
we at now?
Real quick, as we're coming to an end here, and if somebody else has other points, we can jump in. I think, when I say that I think most of the points have been made, I just mean that mine have. If other people have some points they want to throw out there, cool. But I would like to go around kind of just once and just ask. And if we're unsure what I mean by the question exactly, to not get into the minutia of it too much and break down and have the exact same discussions we just had, I'm going to simply ask the question, do you think, yes or no, do you think vaccinations of children should be compulsory, should be mandatory? And if you're unsure and you're going to say, well, what do you mean necessarily? Let's go exactly with California's bill. California's bill that did say that you have to vaccinate.
We will take your
kid.
kids if you don't vaccinate them.
Yeah, if you have to vaccinate your kids, if not, they're not allowed to go to the public school, which we already discussed what happens when you can't go to school, Because although you can say private schools, charter schools, vast majority of private schools and charter schools have the exact same rules as a public school.
True, but once
I went to private schools my whole life.
Here's one solution to your thing, Josh. Here is you're creating then a market for a anti-vax school, let's call it, especially when they're private and they can pop up. You've created a market incentive for that. You'll have those schools pop up overnight. Now, will they be shit? Probably, but you've created a market incentive there that you can't go to. That there's plenty of people in California, a state of 50 to 70 million people or whatever, a lot of people. Where there's enough children, especially with how young that population is there, that if you say no public schools, but you still are required to attend some sort of school, profit-minded folks will fill that need.
This was the exact kind of conversation. And again, if you guys have more points, you can make them. But this is the exact kind of conversation I was trying to avoid because they won't pop up overnight.
Okay,
you're
They
right.
actually won't. They won't pop up overnight. And the one parent simply has to say, well, I can't drive my kid to this school.
Hey, guys.
They need bus service
Hey,
to
guys.
that. And you only get bus service to the public
Hey,
school,
you guys.
which is compulsory.
Bingo.
So,
Hey guys,
again. So, yes or no?
Yes, exactly.
So,
please,
Adam,
please, yes or no?
Should vaccinations be compulsory and mandatory for children in the United States of America?
No.
Dorf, should vaccinations be compulsory and mandatory for children in the United States of America?
I'm going to give a very hesitant yes.
Aaron.
I'm extremely hesitant yes.
Statist pig.
I never denied that I was.
True. Aaron, should vaccinations be compulsory and mandatory for children in the United States of America?
I'd say no, and I have a reason. If I don't have time to explain it, then I agree.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time because we got to go to Pumpkin here. My answer is no. I've already said that. Let's go to, I think we've about wrapped it up. This is your guys' first appearance on Deep Issues.
Literally have no idea what this is.
Okay, this is at the end of Deep Issues. We will go to Pumpkin, the all-knowing, all-seeing Pumpkin.
What up, Pumpkin?
Who will tell us what the next topic for Deep Issues will be.
So
This is how you guys do it, eh?
Yeah.
Ah.
Okay, so what's going to happen is, Aaron, you will pick one. Do not look at it.
All right.
Dorf, you will pick one. Do not look at it. Give them both to me, and and I will put one back in and then keep one out.
Sweet.
So the one that's kept out will be
Or is that how you guys normally do it? Draw two.
when we have two other people here. Yes.
Well,
He's the guest on the network. Give it to him. Just let him pick.
No, this is how.
Jump in.
Okay, is this how you want to do it? Okay.
Yeah, jump in, Dorf. All right, grab one out. Don't look.
Don't look at it. Okay. Aaron, hand it to me. Aaron, pick one. Do not look at it.
Want me to flip them around?
Yeah, flip them around.
We should have done this
Pull
off
them
air.
back in.
Definitely.
Okay. And the next topic for Deep Issues, webisode number 29, will be Adam Hernandez.
Oh, thanks for the drum roll, Dorf. Thank you, Aaron.
That sounded more Wookiee than drum roll.
Uh-oh. I think Dorf is going to be returning next week for the next episode.
Oh, what's this?
I can't wait. Oh man, we got to have Ed for this one too.
Oh, we will make sure Ed's here for this.
Vegetarianism and veganism.
Oh, yes.
Ed and I actually talked about that off air. He wanted me to be on for that one.
2 of my daughters actually just recently became vegans, and I don't quite understand it, so I might want to come myself.
Yeah.
Hey, you wouldn't know it, but Adam here is actually vegetarian.
Yeah. No, my daughter's
Has
a
been for many
vegetarian
years.
as well. And Ed is a vegan.
Yeah, Ed is a vegan.
And Dorf and I are not.
I love my meat.
I just did a diet that was essentially all fatty meat.
But very cool. This will be a good show, everyone.
Bacon.
This is one we're definitely looking forward to. And we are going to have, in the past we've tried to bring in all different areas of expertise and try to come from a position of areas of expertise.
You assholes are going down.
On this show, we will have present all areas of expertise on this particular episode. Ed is very vocal on this, and we're going to have.
Ed is converted. Recently converted.
Do you know what we're going to have on this show? If it's me, Adam, Dorf, and Ed especially, we're going to have a libertarian meat eater, a statist meat eater, a far left vegetarian, and a far right vegan. will all be present on the next show. That is. I'm pretty sure we got it covered.
Call me a reluctantly statist meat eater.
Hold on, I gotta get the date for this.
A reluctantly meat-eating statist.
No.
A reluctantly statist.
Reluctantly statist carnivore. Yeah.
January 8th.
January 8th will be this episode. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in.
No, I hate to say it. I'm going to be out of town for work. Damn it.
Are you really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we may have to work something out. But
January is a 2.
It is a
2 episode month.
Okay. Well, then we may work something out. But for now, we're gonna attempt to move forward with the January 8th. But we will figure it out. Yeah. If something needs to be done. Thanks everybody for tuning in to Deep Issues number 28. I'm Josh. Adam with me as always, and special thanks to our guest Dorf and to our super special Virgin podcast guest Aaron. Appreciate you tuning in.
His cherry was popped tonight.
It felt so good.